See, when my dad came across the border, he was actually looking for the guy that shot his dad. And he came across the border looking for that guy, but he never found him. So they wound up in Edinburgh, and my uncles they stayed there in Edinburgh, and they started working in restaurants. And my dad came to move to, well, actually he was looking for that guy, but he got a job as derooting trees, and then he moved to Corpus Christi and started working on the cotton fields, and that's where he met my mom. But they came over here in, I would say, in the 1900s, because I think he was born in 19. My mom was born in 1901, and he was born in 1902 or 3. So, but they were maybe in the 1920s, something like that, when they came across. Anyway, they wound up in Corpus Christi, and they got married, and that's when I jumped out.
Say your name to the camera.
Raul Guevara Garcia.
Yes.
What's your life story?
My mom, she was born in Cadereyta, Mexico, Nuevo León. My dad was born in the state of San Luis. And they came here in the early, I can't even remember now. Anyway, they were from Mexico, but they came across and they lived in Corpus Christi. And they worked in the fields. They were picking cotton. And that's where my dad met my mom,
Okay.
in Corpus. And after they got married, out came, well, I had a brother that died from pneumonia.
Okay.
He was older than me. Then I came. And then 2 years later, my other brother came out, Rosalio. And in 1934, my sister was born. But during that time, as far as I can remember, it was when I was 6 years old. I was getting ready to go to, well, I was going to start school for the first time. My mom took me to the school, but I jumped out the window of the school and went home. And my mom got surprised to see me home. She had just left me in school. But that's the way I was. I guess I was pretty hyper or something. There's a big depression. Those, some days we didn't even have nothing to eat. My dad worked at the docks then, getting 50 cents an hour. But we made it. Sometimes we didn't have nothing to eat, so they sent us out to the woods to cut cactus and peel it and cut it and sell it. 5 cents a bag. It was to buy food. And I had my mom had a sister, and she had, I think, 8 kids too. We all got together and we formed a gang. We were out there just doing mischiefs and doing this and doing that. But we were kids. So I was used to being out running because my dad had to go to work and my mom stayed home. And I had to run around with the rest of the kids. So when they put me in school, I wasn't ready for it. I guess I kept jumping out of the window in school and running home. But we made it till 1939. We moved to the Valley, the Rio Grande Valley, and we settled in Edinburgh. my dad got a job at the hardware store, and I used to get out of school and go help him sweep, clean, and all that. And he was a merchandise stocker. But I went through Catholic school, 8 years of Catholic school, and when I graduated from Catholic school, they put me in, they signed me up for high school, and I went to high school for 1 year, and I didn't like it because it was too much running around and up and down. You know how high schools are, 2, 3 floors. But I did took the first year. I did took woodwork, and I like woodwork. But I quit school because I didn't like to go up and down. Every class you go to a different room. So I quit and I went to work for the hardware store my dad was working on, sweeping the stock room and stacking merchandise. And ever since then, I stayed in the hardware business. Then I had a boy that had a cannery there in Edinburgh. He closed the cannery and then he opened a hardware store, and I got hired. I must have been about 15 or 16 years old then. And I started working at a hardware store for about 15 years till the government called me. Then I went into the Army in 1950. In 1953, I got out of the Army. By that time, I had already met my wife, but she was just a young girl, so I couldn't marry her right away. So I kept on working. But I had another sister too. My dad had a girl before he married my wife, my mom. I mean, and I met her at a carnival, and then my dad said, "That's your sister." Her name was Lela, and she married a guy, and they had 8 kids also, which they live in Heifer, Texas. So I got 8 nephews and nieces in Heifer, Texas. My mom had 2 brothers too, and one of her brothers was Porfirio. He was my godfather. He baptized me. He used to play the 12-string guitar. And he was always singing, and that's I guess that's where I got the music. Because he came in at night a little bit drunk and he woke me up because he had a bag of candy. He always came at night and played the guitar and gave me a little bag of candy and woke me up. But he passed away in Corpus. And I have a bunch of relatives that passed away too. Most of my cousins in Corpus, they all passed away. My sister living in Hereford, she passed away too. But I still got about 8 cousins, nephews in there, nieces in there. And I got 3 cousins in Lubbock, Texas. And I had some more kids, but they're all spread out. Some live in Idaho. A bunch of Garcia live in Idaho. So I worked in the hardware business till 1963. By that time, me and my wife got married in 1953, and we had the first child was a girl, was Rosemary, and then the second child was a girl, Yolanda. And I remember telling my wife, if we ain't gonna have boys, we're gonna get divorced. The third child was Junior. I said, now we made it. But after him came 2 more girls. So I had a bunch of girls and just 1 boy. In 1963, we moved to Chicago because The hardware business was good, but they weren't paying much. The wages was so low, I just couldn't make it with 4 or 5 kids. So my brother had moved to Chicago, and he got a job as a post, postal carrier. And he called me, and he said, they're hiring over here a lot of jobs. You come on over, they're paying good. So he sent me, I think that time he sent me $100. And I had a little 1955 station wagon Ford that my brother-in-law had given to me. And that's how we moved to Chicago. When we got to Chicago, I was lucky because I got hired with International Harvester. And then came Rick. And them guys over there at the factory used to teach me, hey, you got a boy, you got a boy. Yeah, I got boy, I got 2 boys now. But it was hard because rents, they didn't want to rent to Mexicans too good. We had a hard time finding a place to live. We stayed with my brother there and for a few months, and then we finally got an apartment. And but at that time, we stayed 2 years in Chicago, and at 2 years, the factory, the International Harvester decided to move the factory to Mexico, and they wanted me to go to Mexico because I speak both languages. And no, I couldn't move. I got too many kids. I can't move to Mexico. What am I going to do in Mexico? I don't know nobody over there. I don't even know the country. So no, I quit. And my brother went over there and talked to me. He said they were hiring over here. They were from different factories, and he was working for General Motors. So I came. So we moved to Chicago in 1965, I think. No, yeah. That damn thing. In 1965, we moved to Chicago. To Ohio. And it's usually I was pretty lucky because I got hired right away at General Motors. And I went to work for General Motors, and they gave me a job as some hoist operator or something, to move the blocks from the furnace to the welders. And I liked that job. It was pretty nice. It was pretty neat. All I had to do was just hook them, and the cranes would move them. And that's what I knew of several guys, most of those guys, Castle, and I knew most of those guys. But the job, I got bumped out of there. An older man bumped me out of that job. And they sent me to a sandblaster. And then from sandblaster, I was a couple of days there, and another guy bumped me. You know, the more seniority you have, you can bump. So they sent me back to grinding blocks, taking all the excess iron out, and I was doing all right. Then they bumped me out of there, so they sent me to the line of the heads, and I had to drill the holes in the heads. They had 9 holes, and some of them were hard. And chisel would jump, and they would cut them. So I threw that thing away and told the foreman. Oh, and the foreman was too pushy. He was pushy. He wanted more and more. And I said, here, you do it. And I quit. I went into the front office and told him I was quitting. They don't like the job, but the foreman was too pushy. And I can't take that crap. And so I quit General Motors. I worked 6 months there. I quit General Motors, came home, told my wife, I'm out of a job. And then Ray Jennings, he was living across my brother-in-law, and he told me about this factory over here. So I came over, and I got hired right away too. So I didn't miss too much work. And then they put me on welding machine, welding four-way wrenches. And I learned them right away, and I was good. And the foreman was really happy. He said, "You're the first guy that does a job quick and plenty. And other guys, they would put him in there and they could break him or twist him, and you had to be calm, take your time, and know what the hell you were doing." So I worked there for, I think, 5 years. I welded four-way wrenches for 5 years. And then they quit making them. So I went to another outfit called the washing room, where we watch all the wrenches and different liquids. They call them the watcheteer or something. Going back to Texas, the wages were so low that I just couldn't make it. And you kids were growing up. I had Rosemary, Yolanda, Marta, Olga, and Marty, and Junior. I said, I couldn't make it with what I'm making here. They were giving me $60 a week. And I couldn't make it with $60 a week. So that's why I moved to Chicago. In Chicago, I was surprised when they first paid me $3.25 an hour. I started with $3.25 an hour with the International Harvester. And then I came over here and got the same wages as General Motors. 3 something they were paying then. And when I quit and joined the SK Tool Company, they started me with $6 an hour. And when I quit, I was making $12 an hour. Well, I didn't quit, I retired. I retired. But thank God we made it. We had hard times sometimes because, like I said, when we were in Corpus, there were days that we didn't have a damn thing to eat. So we had to go out and pick cactus and cut it and clean it and go sell it so you can buy a loaf of bread. We also had a tree they call a mesquite tree. It bears a big, long stem fruit. And, we used to peel those up and boil them in water and make some syrup. And we used to sell that to nickel a dime a glass or something so we could buy bread and something to eat. But like I say, we had hard times, and but they were nice times because we had a lot of people that were happy, and we lived together. Communities over there were so close that we helped one another. So now I live in Ohio, and the same way happened here. They didn't want to rent Mexicans. People were discriminations. We had to live. My brother-in-law had a house on South Street.
Yeah.
And that's where we stayed with him. We stayed with him for a year. While I joined the SK Tool Company, then I finally got a little house. There was a man here that he was a good man. He tried to help the Mexicans. His name was Victor Hartzell.
Hartzell? Victor Hartzell?
Victor Hartzell, yeah. He rented me a house. And then I began to meeting people and making friends. And I joined St. John's Catholic Church, and I met a lot of good people there. I met one of my best friends was John Kisner. He was a lawyer, and he was the head of the St. Vincent de Paul. And he called me up and said, "You got a bunch of kids?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You got winter clothes?" I said, No, I can buy them right now." So he gave me a slip and sent me to a Red Wing shoe store, and they gave all you guys shoes and boots. And John Kisner, the St. Vincent de Paul, paid for all that. And from there on, we got together. We had prayer groups and retreats and all that kind of stuff. And that's what settled me, because I used to drink beer, a lot of beer, but I quit. and I joined the groups. And John Kisner had a good man. He helped me a lot with Rudy and Ralph. When they got caught drunk and put in jail, he would get him out. And he didn't never charge me a penny. He finally got sick and passed away.
Do you remember anything about the war?
Oh, yeah. I joined the Army in 1950, December 1950. I never forget that. I took basic training in Fort Bliss, Texas. And we were getting ready to combat because I learned every way of fighting with the knives, with the guns, with the bayonets and machine guns. And then they placed me on the anti-aircraft outfit, which shooting planes. And I thought for sure they were going to send us to Korea because we took a lot of training, a lot of fighting, combat, hand-to-hand combat. They used to take us to New Mexico, the White Sands, the mountains there, and we had the caravan, and all of a sudden they raised dummies, and we had to be quick and put in their bayonet and stab him, or hit him with the butt and then stab him. We took all our kind of training. After we were finished training, they got us ready, and he said, "Get ready because we're leaving tomorrow morning." Okay, so that night we load the train. We loaded the guns and the tractors, the car cats. They pulled the guns, and we loaded everything. The train that afternoon. Next morning we left pretty early, about 6 o'clock in the morning. We rode the train all the way. And we thought we were going to California to get shipped to Korea. No, then we find out that we were going to New Jersey. I said, New Jersey? What the heck are we going to do in New Jersey? Well, we stayed there a couple of days in New Jersey, and then the following day, get ready because we're shipping out. We got on the boat, and we headed to Germany. I said, what the hell are we going to do in Germany? The war's in Korea, not in Germany. But the government had a special mission for us in Germany. We went out to Germany, and the first few nights we slept on tents, and it was raining like hell and muddy. Man, you had mud up to your butt. we slept there 3 or 4 days because they didn't have barracks yet for us. And then next morning when we got up, you had to clean everything up, go outside and clean the guns, and they were all muddy and dirty. Finally, they gave us barracks. Next morning, they got us up, and we went to the Black Forest to do some training. So we ran all over that damn forest. It's lovely. I like that because it was clean. It was clean woods. The Black Forest, you go, you can sit here, you can see through the trees all the way to the other side. That's one thing the Germans got. They keep them woods clean. They do not hear too many weeds and all that shit. So anyway, we took, and then we went to the bay. We went to the bay because on one side was Germany and the other side was England. The other side of that bay was England.
Uh-huh.
And we start shooting. We weren't shooting planes, we were shooting at targets. The plane would come, and about 100 or 200 feet he had a cable, and he was pulling the target. So we shoot at the target. And then we have, we don't have no planes, we shoot at make-believe bunkers. We shoot the bunkers where the Germans were hiding. Mm-hmm. So we did pretty good. There was 13 guys, I think, on my platoon. And we had a gun. And then they made me ammunition chief. I was setting the time on the head of the bullet. Had to set the time for, had to check, well, the computers would send us the readings, the windish and the elevation and the speed of the wind and how fast the plane was coming and when to shoot. I had to set that time on the nose of the bullet. It was just a goddamn bullet about that big, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to be quick about it because I had 6 guys lined up. I had to pass that bullet to the guy, and they would pass it and give it to the loader, and then the gunner would get ready. And they had a guy on each side, one sending the elevation and the sideways. It was pretty neat. I liked the lyric. I love the Army. I love their training and the exercise they gave us. We used to run, jump rope, climb the fences, and crawl on our stomach for 2-3 blocks. And they hit dynamite on the ground. Once in a while, they explode and they fill you with dirt. But you couldn't get up because the other guns were shooting machine guns. They were shooting with machine guns to a target, and we were crawling underneath that. And then we had our fun too. I met 2-3 families, German families, and they were pretty nice. Some of them used to cook for us, give us a hot meal. And we also went to the beer joints. We had a couple of fights with some Russians because we went to a town called Lubeck. And that was in the border of Germany and Russia. And they had some Russian soldiers coming to drink in the beer joints. And some of them thought they were smart. So we got into a couple of fights. But that time, my compadre Leo, your grandfather, he came to Chicago to baptize you. He passed away too, a couple of years ago. We were always together. And he was, in high school, he was a boxer. So he knew how to fight. So we fought a couple of Russian soldiers, and kicked their butts up and kick them away. We had fun. It was nice fun. At night, I got a PFC stripe after training, but I don't know. When I was young, I always liked chasing women, and we met a couple of German girls, and we were supposed to be in the post before midnight. And that night we stayed outside. We came back till 1 o'clock in the morning, so I got busted. They took my stripe out. A few months later, they they gave it back to me again. I would have made sergeant first class because the job I had was corporate. Ammunition chief. I had to be a sergeant. They were paying me sergeant paid, but I didn't have the stripes. They didn't give me the stripes because I was always staying outside late. And then later on, just about the time we were getting to come back to the States, the general called me. The General Eisenhower was my general at that time. He was an army general in Germany. He called me. Not me. He called up several guys, and we took a test. And me and a guy from Far Texas got the highest points. But they wanted us to sign for 6 years. And there was a big construction company from New York that came over. They were going to start rebuilding the bridge. That big bridge they busted, they bombed. They was going to start rebuilding the bridge, and they needed help. And they wanted us to sign for 6 years, and they would give us a job with the construction company. We could go work. In the morning we have to, and the night we had to stay in the post. But during the day we work. And they were paying good, but no, it sounded good. I wanted to come back to the States. So I came back to the States, and I went over to Mexico to Reynosa, married my wife.
What do you remember about the radio show you had?
Oh, the compadres, that was one in the 70s.
Yeah, everybody asks me about the.
Yeah, there was a guy here from Mexico. He was pretty active, Joe Trevino, and he used to live in Holgate. And he came over here and talked to us, and he's the one that brought La Raza Unida over here, and the ¿cómo se llama? Head Start.
Oh,
He was the one that pulled it in.
okay.
They never mentioned him. He did a lot of work. And then even I got a job with Head Start with him. Used to get out of work and go to not Head Start, NOCAC. Not Community Action. I say Head Start because Head Start is part of it.
Yeah.
But it was NOCAC. So I got a job there, and then we started another outfit. I forgot what the name was. We used to bring. He used to knew a lot of musicians from Mexico. He used to bring them every year. We brought the mariachi, the infantil, the little kids that is a mariachi group. They were orphans, but they taught them music. So we brought that group one time, and they played in St. John. Then he moved to Fort Wayne, and we started a buying club. When Beatriz had the grocery store,
Yeah.
she loaned us a part of it, and we started the buying club. But it didn't last long because people just didn't go buy nothing. They go to the Kroger or Chiefs. So we would have made it big in the buying club because we could. I went around and we used to go to Mommy. There was a big warehouse there, food warehouse that was selling wholesale. That's where we bought most of the stuff. And we were selling it cheaper than the Kroger and all that. But that was for the members. And it worked pretty nice because everything you buy, a certain percentage would go into a different account. And that account, at the end of the year, all the members would get a share of it. But it didn't last long. So me and Moses, Joe Trevino had the program first.
Moses.
And then he was going to move to Fort Wayne. And when he moved to Fort Wayne, he called me and Moses, and we took it over.
Moses Andonegi?
Andonegi. And we were in that radio for about 3 years. And it was pretty good because we was making pretty good money there. And but then the owner, he was an old man, he decided to take it off. Not take it off, but to change it to Sunday. We had it on Saturday.
Yeah.
And he wanted us to go on Sunday, and I said, no, I don't know on Sunday. Le dijo Moisés, well, if you quit, my compadre, todavía no me dan compadre. If you quit, I quit too, le dijo, I can do it alone. Because it takes a little bit of work to be a radio announcer. You have to prepare everything ahead of time and go out and get commercials, and it's just, it takes at least 2 guys. So we quit. Then a guy from Michigan came over. I forgot now. Another guy from Michigan came over, and he wanted to start a radio station in Spanish. So we had several meetings, and we had to put at least $1,000 a piece to help him out. And we was going to put a 10,000 watt. We was going to build it over here towards Ayersville, and it would be totally in Spanish and part in English, but mostly Spanish. And he was a white guy, but he talked good Spanish. But no, they never gave him permission, so he didn't get off the ground. You remember the Puerto Rican girls that live next to Tencha? They live on Myrna.
On.
There was poor Pedro. Pedro se
Yeah,
llamaba.
I'd say.
And he had two girls, and one of them was pretty smart.
Mm-hmm.
And she was working with us. But we never got ahead. And I don't know, but I think I got a tape, maybe might not good no more, where we recorded the last program or something.
Oh, yeah?
I think, I don't know. I got so much stuff, I don't know what the hell I got. But it was pretty good. We had a lot of sponsors. One of them was Jacobs, and I had that program, the Jacobs. I was announcing Jacobs in some of the stores downtown and banks. We get pretty good money going.
What do you remember about the gente around here?
The what?
Like our people.
Well, like I said, when we first got here in '65, they were all living in the Pacific area because they couldn't find no renters. They only rented Mexicans in the Pacific area, and Mr. Jim and Mr. Hartzell had a bunch of houses. He was the only one that rented Mexicans, and they all live over there in the Pacific. But when we came here, we didn't live in the Pacific because Sean knew a family here downtown on South Street, and he had a house, and then we stayed with him. But all the Spanish, all the Spanish people live in the Pacific. But within the years, Beatriz, she worked hard. Beatriz Gonzalez.
Yeah.
At the first couple I knew, her husband passed away too. He was drinking the same way with Ralph. He got poisoned.
Mm-hmm.
Pancho se llamaba Frank Gonzalez. And they used to live over there by where Brickell School is. And Beatriz was the only one, I think she had the store already. And she had one here and one over there on 66, going towards Fayette. She had a store there on I don't know what the big road is, 2nd Street or 2nd Street. She had a store there.
Yep.
She was a hustler. Beatriz was a hustler. She worked for General Motors, but she invested all her money. She had a lot of houses for rent. After everything went settled down, she was the only one that had houses for rent for Mexicans. ¿Te acuerdas de ¿cómo se llamaba el que se? Bernal. He used to live over here on Happy. Esa era casa de Beatriz.
Yeah.
Y tenía otra acá, está la tiendita en la esquina. Era de ella también. Yeah, it was hard to get a house back then. Now it's different, but finally got rid of some of the, ¿cómo se llaman los criminalistas? Discriminadores.
Yeah.
Discriminating people. So
Yeah.
they all passed away now. That's all new people now. They got different ideas. But
What was the biggest thing in history that you remember, Dad, in your lifetime? The Berlin Wall, where they split Berlin?
well, now there's another thing. When I was over there was no wall.
Okay. Were they?
The Berlin Wall came later.
Did it?
Yeah. See, when I was over there, we would travel all over Germany. We went to the border of Russia
Uh-huh.
and back, and we went to that bay that is between New England and Germany. I would say that one of the biggest things I think is seeing that disaster that happened. That all the buildings were down, tore up. In 1950, they haven't fixed nothing yet.
They hadn't reconstructed.
Everything was tore down. People were living in basements, and they were having a hell of a time getting food. There were no stores. They were all broken down. There was a few stores because there was a guy there making cuckoo clocks, and that's where I bought that when I got.
Mm.
Well, I bought several, but I gave them to my boss over there in Texas. And I remember trying to be a politician. I remember we were rooting for John Kennedy, and we had a big cookout over there by the border. There's a ranch called El Tejano. They got nothing but big bulls, the Brahma bulls.
Mm-hmm.
They got a bunch of them, and we used to make big cookouts and invite a lot of people. But we were rooting for John Kennedy. He was running for president, and
Yeah.
that's about the only time that I got involved in that in the politician business. And one of the biggest things I really enjoy is having met Mr. Eisenhower.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he was a general. He was the general in Germany when I got there, and then we had an interview with him. He was trying to make us sign 6 years more. And said, "You get 6 years more, I'll make you a sergeant." And then I gave you a chance to get a job with the construction company that was going to start rebuilding the bridge that you knocked down. I said, "No, everything sounds all right, General, pero I got to go back to Texas. I tengo mi flor."
Yeah.
When I met your mom, she was just a little girl. She was running around. She was running around there barefooted, and I went. I already had met my sister, my stepsister, or whatever you call her, and she said that Margarita, she was adopted by her brother and his wife because their mom died. Her mom died, I guess. I never met him, and she don't know who her daddy is. So I don't know. Something got him to me, and I just said I'm gonna wait for her. And just when I went to Germany and came back, she was already grown, and I went and told her brother that I wanted her. And they told me, "No, her brother is a mean group. You better watch out." When I got over there, he was no mean. He was a duffel guy, very calm and very friendly. Like I say, we had a lot of fun in different ways. And after a few years, after I met my sister, which I didn't know I had, she was going around with a guy from Mexico también. Pero he was driving a wagon with a ox. He didn't have no horses. He had an ox. He was pulling a race, and that's why he was dating my sister, and he would ride her in that wagon. They went through town on that wagon, and that ox pulled in the wagon. They were fun. And they got married and started having kids and everything. Even though we didn't have no riches, we didn't care about riches as long as we had just a piece of bread or something. But we were happy. Yeah, very happy. And the families next door, they were always interchanging plates. They made some good food. They took a plate to the neighbor, or the neighbor would bring something. And that's what I like about that Texas, because people were really friendly in the neighborhood. You know, that they would exchange food. And Thanksgiving, they would make big turkey, and they took to the neighbor. And over here in Ohio, and even in Chicago too, everybody's for themselves. They all want to make big money. They don't want nothing with the neighbor. That's no good.
Where was Grandma born?
She was born in Alamo, Texas.
Alamo, Texas?
Yeah, and that's where what I call her, my brother-in-law. The oldest brother adopted her because she was an orphan. My brother-in-law, he was born in Alamo too, but they didn't have, back then they didn't have much education, so he was one of them guys that don't know nothing. So he was afraid when the United States got into war and they would start calling people. They were taking in the Second World War,
Yeah.
they were taking up to 45-year-olds. And he was scared. So he went to Mexico. He lived in Reynosa because he didn't want to go to war. And then when the war was over, he didn't want to come over. He thought he could, they would punish him or something because he didn't went to the army or whatever they were going to put him. And he had two brothers. One lived in Alamo, and the other one lived in McAllen. And they live in here. But they're a bunch of dumb guys. He didn't want to come across because he didn't have no papers. Later on, within the years, I found out that he was born in Alamo too. And all you had to do, go to court and get the registration certificate. And he did it. He did it and he came across. When he came across, he passed away. But all those years he spent in Mexico because he was afraid to come to the United States. Oh, Patricio, her name was Patricio. Ah, poor guy. He was a nice guy, but he was really dumb. One of them dumb guys. He could have been in the United States and work over here, but he was afraid. Then when the war or he was afraid to come. So, but he didn't know he was a U.S. citizen.